with those are simple citizens rules. Be with our school system, be with the school board, be with other elected officials board, and if that's always do your will and do what's right for everyone. First item up will be building and code. Minutes. Approve minutes last meeting. All in favor?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, have the building codes report for December. Building permits issued in December was 113. Fees taken in was $200 for plan review, $30,436 for building permits, $3,365 for plumbing permits, $440 for gas permits, for a total of $34,441. On the back of your building report, it compares this year to last year, but being the end of the year, I did a bar graph report for you on single-family dwelling units. Our total this year, 373. As you can see, it's our lowest figure we've had for the time that we have been keeping the numbers that the Building Codes Department started. On the next page is the permits issued, with 1,962 for the year. That includes all of our building permits as far as additions, swimming pools, anything that we issue permits for. That was 1,962. That figure also is pretty low, not our lowest, but in recent years our lowest, yes.
David, are you going back to, you're saying 1987?
Yes.
Is that when it started?
Yes, that's when the inspection program and the code adoptions took place in late '87. So that was the first year that we had permitted and inspected houses. It was in '87. On the next report, we have our inspections for property maintenance. We performed 1,000, I'm sorry, let me start with December. We performed 64 inspections in December on property maintenance, 77 on BZA cases and signs. Our new cases for December was 10. Our closed cases for December was 16. Our totals for the year was 1,897 inspections on property maintenance, 1,753 on BZA cases and signs. Our new cases for the year, 507. Closed cases, 539. Our next report is our development tax collection. The Building Codes Department took in $57,000 for building permits. The Planning Department took in $6,750 for lots approved for $63,750. Our cumulative total fiscal year, $530,250. And that's my report, Mr. Chairman.
Anybody got any questions on the report? No, I'll take a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Got a question.
Okay.
When, just for information purposes, when you get a, one of these, complaints that comes in here, what's the process or time frame, or how does that work? Do you go out and when you get Well, is it something you handle it within 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, or does it vary between what each circumstance?
We usually perform the inspection within 2 days.
Okay.
It may be that we're, of course, trying to save gas and according on what area it's in, so we may not be in that area that day and wait till the next day when we are performing other inspections. But normally a 2-day inspection of the property, if we receive the call on Monday, we should be out there by at least by Wednesday and have a report back in the office in 2 days.
And if somebody's made that, they can call the office, or do you notify them?
Either way, if they ask us to call them back on our results, if we find a violation, we will call them back. They can leave their name and number, or they can be anonymous and just call back, within a week or so and let us know the status of what we did with that complaint.
Okay. Is there any update on the dogs out there on Joe Rowland?
On my impression, it was resolved by the rabies control office.
Okay. Well, that's kind of what I was thinking, but
Mhm.
I just didn't know if there were any updates. I hadn't had any calls, which is a good thing, but
Mhm. Yeah.
that
I
generally.
haven't either.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, planning, they, didn't have no items in planning this month, but, they sent a subdivision, report, and it's pretty well, as it is. You can see the total number of lots on the back, permits issued, it's for the year. And that's all planning had.
And I believe you got a BZA report.
Okay. The Board of Zoning Appeals. They had, 4 items here. Word and Spirit Church, located on Shovel Highway, requested a variance for relief to allow internal illuminated sign located within the R15 zone. It's passed 5 for, none against. Winrow Road, request for conditional use permit for the temporary extraction of resources. Motion approved with amendments. Copy of reclaiming plan, blasting permits provided to staff. Appropriate signs maintained for trucks entering and leaving the highway. No hauling before daylight, after dark. This motion carried 5 for, 0 against.
Is this considered a mineral extraction?
This is over on Winrow Road where they just hauling shot rock down the road there. Where they're coming through there at 840.
Do you know shot rock is included as a mineral as
I'm
far as
not-
where we would get paid?
I don't
so
think
much.
it is.
In this particular case, Anthony, it's not a mineral thing because they are hauling dirt. They just hauling fill out of there. to
Fill.
fill in for. It's not the 840. It's the Veterans Parkway that's coming across Salem Road and going on over to 96. Well, I understand that, but no, it's dirt, and it's not just shot rock. It's in fact, they were going to end up with a pond out of it. It's just gravelly rock. I mean, gravelly dirt.
Right,
It's
but
not-
what it's gonna be used for has
It's
nothing
just
to
a
do with
bed.
whether or not we get an extraction fee. There's a mineral extraction tax is what I'm getting at. Now, is that considered mineral? Is dirt and rock considered mineral? They are minerals, but I don't know if that comes under the.
No, it was
mineral.
my understanding out of when it came through the planning that it wasn't, but it was just more of a fill in type. It wasn't, they weren't quarrying rock there. They were just quarrying some fill as they do all over the county when they're putting in roads.
I think the only ones you get them when they come through rock crushing,
Right.
my understanding. Next item was, 9358 Horton Highway. Request for conditional use permit allowing a type B mobile home as an accessory dwelling unit in R15. Motion to approve. Staff recommended, fail for lack of second. Motion approved with amendment. Neither mobile home request or on adjacent property used as rental property. Motion carried 4 and 1 again. The final one was 4699 Winrow Road. Request for variance relief to allow an additional 240 square feet of accessory structure area for a total of 2,400 square feet in R15. Motion approved, and it passed 5 for and 0 against. And this is Board of Zoning Appeal. That's their report. Anybody got any questions on either report? If ain't, I'll take a motion. Any questions? All in favor? Aye. Okay. Next report will be the landfill report.
Good evening and Happy New Year. So far. It's still a little early to tell, I guess. Okay. Let's do the landfill report first since I've got it on top. Landfill is doing okay. We're still a little slow right now. It's just that time of year. But we're still working on our expansion, trying to get some information together to go through the state with that. Revenues are decent. Just the volumes right now are slow, and it's partly the economy, and part of it's because of the holidays. But our volume's actually up from what it was last year because of our neighbors' pricing. They're pretty high. So with our, the stuff that the contractors that can bring to us, they'll bring to us instead of going next door. Any questions on the landfill? Okay, on the convenience center side, of course, the convenience center is a little slower than they have been in the past. Tonnage is down, numbers of loads are down. A lot of that's the economy again. But there is some good news to share. We started our recycle program with the school systems, the single stream recycling on the pilot program. And what I did is had Kathy run back through the numbers for the calendar year 09 versus calendar year 08. And there's two numbers that kind of jumped out at me there. 224 fewer tons in 09 than 08. And we're calling that our recycle numbers. So and that's a little over 70 tons a month. And that's about what we thought we'd have. And then the other thing is we changed the way we ran the summer schedule for the schools on the front loader because they are out of school. And we actually picked up 1,400 fewer yards because of that. And that was an energy savings on the truck expense just by not running all the schools on the regular schedule. We just dumped them all once a week. Any questions on the convenience center?
On your employees, do you just, since things have gotten slow, have you had some people leave or quit?
Yes, we have fewer employees than we used to have.
So you just hadn't had to replace anybody?
Well, we've got one that the litter crew, Mr. McElroy, when his name passed away. So one of my employees is filling in for him for the time being until they can get their ducks in a row and hire somebody else. And then sadly to say, Michael Roller, my truck foreman, has been out for the last 2 weeks. His wife's been battling cancer, and she lost her battle this morning. And then had some guys on vacation as well. So we're department-wide, solid waste department-wide, we're about 6 people fewer with those people being out and doing other things right now. So, but we're staying busy. We could probably have another driver on the street, especially for the last couple of weeks, because of the holiday trash and things like that. But the guys are doing a good job keeping up with it.
What is our standing or this understanding with Murfreesboro picking up the trash at the city schools? Has anything changed? Or?
No, sir. Nothing's changed. The only thing that we changed is one of the schools, which is, well, I'm not going to tell you which one. One of the city schools is in the pilot program. And that's the only change we made as far as the city is concerned on their service. I did get a call Saturday morning from the sheriff department. Of course, it was the holiday, and I was planning on running the front loader truck anyway, but they called before I'd gotten there that the dumpsters were full at the jail. And I told the sergeant that called, I said, I thought y'all let all those folks go home for the holidays. He said it would have been nice, but they didn't do that. But the jail is wanting to be part of the pilot program, which we've looked at it, and I've talked to Miss Pat over there. We're going to look at it a little closer, but we'll start them in with the pilot program sometime this month. We think that we can make some big changes over there for their recycling effort as well. We've had good results with the folks that we've talked to, and of course y'all went and saw the operation. It's all been positive. It's a culture change. People aren't used to it, and it's I'm not a patient person, so it's not going through as quickly as I'd hoped for, but it's still going, and it's doing well.
What's the downside with it?
There's really not much downside to it. The commodity price on the rebate, which we're not getting one now because they're doing the hauling for us as well, since it is mixed, they have to sort it and all that kind of stuff so that you don't get quite as much on the commodity price. But when you can blend it all together and make one trip instead of 6 trips, it's worth it.
Any other questions, John?
On the pickup Murfreesboro schools, we don't get compensated for that.
No.
Well, I think we talked about that a few months ago. How did it originate where we didn't get compensated?
Nobody can really tell how it started. It started back long enough. Here's my opinion, and it's strictly my opinion. The best I can tell, in 1974, the county bought a front loader truck.
Yes, sir.
And that's back when we had what they called the green box system, where you had all the containers scattered out all over the county, which was such a mess. And they'd go dump them once or twice or 3 times a week, and they'd have inmates clean them up. And they started dumping the schools along with that. The Murfreesboro City school system was much smaller then as well. So we'll get your schools while we're getting ours. That's what I think happened. There's no paperwork, no anything. And then as our school system has grown and theirs has as well, it's just grown into what it is today. Now, a lot of people try to say it was mixed in with the leachate. They treat the leachate from the landfill. Well, the calendar time doesn't line up with that. The leachate thing didn't happen until the late 90s. Front loader started in the 70s. So that timing, to me says, no, that's not the case.
Well, if you haven't already, would you, if it's okay with the committee members, for you to do a cost analysis of what this is costing us on a monthly basis or whatever, weekly, monthly or something, so we can have those numbers?
Okay.
I mean, you may already have that.
I can get close to it. I can't give you a down to the penny number, but I can get within, $100 or so of what it costs.
Well, I mean, that's close enough. What is it with?
Oh, I don't know off the top of my head.
Oh.
The numbers that our cost to run our front loader truck, because we don't have disposal. If the school system, both systems, hired it done, BFI, Waste Management, TriStar, one of those companies, it'd be somewhere around $450,000 a year to have that service. Wow. And it doesn't cost us near that much.
You talking about the whole school system?
And of course, the county system is much larger than the city. The city only has 10 schools.
What would it cost just for the cities? Do you know?
No, I don't. But I can find out.
Okay. And I'd like to know that. I don't know about the rest of you, but.
Well, that's good to know, but, I'm in the county myself, but I'll just point this out to all the committee. City pays city and county tax too, so it ain't like they ain't paying that. They paying county tax and a city tax. That's what I'm saying.
I'm talking about the city of Murfreesboro.
I'm talking about the city of Murfreesboro too. If you live in the city of Murfreesboro, you paying a county tax, then you paying a city tax.
Well, I see right here, well, we just waived $2,000 for them again.
Now, that's where they tore down a home. There was agreement made several years ago that they could bring up to 3 homes per month, and that's just one home that they brought in.
They also have a separate school system.
I understand that. I'm not trying to defend.
Right,
I'm
but
not
every
trying
time
to.
we build an elementary school, well, Carl, it's elementary.
I'm just saying, I'm not trying to defend nobody. I just want to point that out. If we get into things like this, we got all kind of agreements with the city. I'm sure the mayor can tell you that.
And I'd like to also point out that the town of Smyrna and Laverne, we're hauling all of their garbage for every citizen there.
Plus school, no.
So you could say that.
Well, we're hauling them for our schools, for the county schools.
Now, what the mayor's talking about is the
Convenience.
We're
residents.
hauling for each
Yeah,
resident,
because
which we're not doing in the city of Murfreesboro.
Right, yeah.
Where are we coming with the looking at making that the zone that we were talking about it several meetings ago?
There hasn't been
We've
any-
sent a letter.
We sent a letter, and we had a meeting. Some of you might have been in that meeting. We hadn't made any constructive progress, let's say that.
But Mayor, wouldn't you agree that, I don't want to use the word disparity, but when you look at county government, and then you look at city government, and you look at positive growth, I mean, there's not many businesses in the county that has sales tax dollars. You know, when you look at the city, where there's hotels, the avenues, Target, I mean, we're on an unequal playing field, in my opinion, when it comes to tax dollars. And I know you get frustrated with it, but I just, you know what we're facing in the next
Well, all of us do. I mean,
few months.
But I mean, this garbage situation is independent of that, in a sense, of that discussion.
Right.
But anyway,
But I think that's
the
one
point's well taken.
area that we could look at, though. If there's something here that's unequal and it's burdening down the county even more so, then that's something that I think we should look at.
we should, but I think we need to, this all has to be taken in its total context. Just as the Chairman Jernigan has told us, all of these citizens in each of these municipalities are paying property taxes to us. And it would be a bit difficult really to see where the disparity is, where it's unequal. We'd have to do a huge amount of effort there. So, yeah, it probably needs review, but I don't think we should be thinking that really is out of tilt with respect to one versus the other right now. I think we need to look at the whole thing in the total picture.
In my opinion, the county, and that's all, and I'm trying to be fair with everything the way I see it. It just seems like the county, I want to use a word, but I'm not going to use it here. It has to do with solid waste. It just seems like we're the stepchild in a lot of cases when it comes to some of this. And I see what we're facing in the next few months. And I know y'all see it too. And we just paid some fees here, last month that equated to a pretty significant sum. So I'm not looking for a battle or anything. It just seems like it's unfair sometimes. But just from where I sit and the way I see things, that's all.
But and all that said, and I agree with we're actually in a better situation than any of our neighbors. Middle Point Landfill is here within the county. The city of Murfreesboro and Rutherford County get free trash disposal, which combined between the two of us is about $4.5 million a year worth of money if we had to pay for it. The county also gets the host fee, which I was looking at that today, which with the economy that's down quite a bit. So, but we're looking at quite a bit of money out of that, and most all that's what funds my department. So we're a whole lot better off than our neighbors are at this point.
But Mr. Williams has asked for you to come back with what it is costing to do the city, so I think we at least ought to, look at his request there.
Okay,
and
we
we'll
can
know
do
what
that.
that's
And
costing.
what I can do is come up with what it costs to dump a container. And then you can look at that and it'll tell you what it costs us to do the city schools and the county schools. And then we've got some other county entities as well.
Well, being a city commissioner of Murfreesboro, since they asked them for all these studies, city of Murfreesboro have their own garbage pickup.
Mhm.
Now, what would it cost if city of Murfreesboro didn't have that garbage pickup?
We would wind up, if we did it the way we're doing it in the county with convenience centers, quite a bit more. The city of Murfreesboro, population-wise, is roughly half of the county.
Bring me back an analysis on that.
Okay.
So being fair amounts to first unscrambling the omelet, right?
That's true. Putting the egg back together.
You got what
Speaking of
Mr.
us,
Commissioner McAdoo question
Well, a
to.
better way, another way to look at that, what Commissioner McAdoo said is, we know pretty much what it's costing us to haul that garbage out of Smyrna and Laverne. So we know what that burden is.
Mhm. When I talk to the city solid waste director pretty often. He and I talk regularly. And our departments are really, really different. We run convenience centers. They have one that they have a center attendance in, but they don't have the trucks to haul them. It's not their equipment. That's supplied by Middle Point Landfill. And then they run the rear loaders and the side loaders and the brush trucks and those type things. And all their equipment is completely different from our equipment. We can't even do the same things. We run front loaders and roll-offs, and they run residential and brush. So our departments we're both doing the same thing. We're servicing garbage, but we do it completely different ways. And Joey Smith is the solid waste director for the city, and he and I work really, really well together.
you're speaking of our host fee and our tipping fees that we don't have to pay now. I know it's millions of dollars now that we get, that we receive or save. But what year does that expire?
It doesn't expire. That host agreement, that's for the
Well,
life.
that's when they close down. But the
Right.
free tipping, that expires, doesn't it?
The free tipping will expire if and when the landfill closes.
So nothing expires until it closes.
That's correct.
Okay. And they're looking at how many years now?
It varies. Their
that.
volume is actually going down, so it's 10 plus years. It's over 10 years.
But when they got that last permit, they said it would be at least another 15. I don't
Once
know.
they get that opened up and going, and
They've got,
I
they
think
got an
they,
expansion, just what, 3 years or more, so.
and so they're still working on it. They haven't even started in putting
think
garbage in there yet.
They even quoted more than 15 years additional life. I think it was more like 25. I don't know.
And see, with the volumes going down, it's just going to make it last a little bit longer, which is a good thing. The recycling efforts that we're trying to do will help with that as well.
I think say much recycling's taking place everywhere. That should, in the future, get better.
But we know that they increased their tonnage coming in from like out of state or out of county.
Years ago, yes.
Right. Aren't they still increasing?
Their intake, daily intake, is actually down from what it's been in the past. And what I'm basing that off is the amount of money that we get from them on a monthly basis. That's down.
Any other questions for the director?
How's the Lions doing?
They're staying busy. They're down a person. They had one that he found something else to do, which his business was down a little bit too, so it was kind of good for both of them. I talk to him on a daily basis as well.
Yeah. How much, they're coming to planning Thursday night with Smyrna, I think something to do with their site or something, but if they weren't doing the service for us that they're doing, where would that put us?
He hauls all the roll-off recycle containers, convenience centers, and the 4 unmanned sites. and we pay him to do that, and then he processes and sells the commodity. We get a little bit of rebate off of it. Of course, he keeps some of it for his profit margin. If we had to haul that, we could, especially in the climate that we are now. We've got the trucks. We probably have to replace some of the drivers that we haven't replaced. And if he was still to where we could take it to him, he's probably one of the closest places to go.
Yeah. Is he ever threw out the option of that being open to the public where people could drop? Where you almost had some recycling there, a small recycling effort there?
Now, he is open to the public. As far as if you've got.
I mean, not just metal. I mean, if there was other areas to recycle there, whether it's plastic or.
Now, he does all that.
Oh, he does? But he allows the public to come in right there? Oh, does he? Okay, I didn't know that. So he has containers outside there?
No, yeah, he does have containers, but that's not what he's set up for. He's set up to where if you've got loads of cardboard or plastic or whatever the commodity may be, he's in business to accept those.
Oh, good. I didn't realize I thought it was just metal.
No, he does it. He does all of it.
Okay.
But he doesn't accept the small loads that flow through like we do, like at Kroger sites.
No.
So it's open in bulk as far as the public.
Right.
Any other question? Not, I take a motion.
Accept the report.
All in favor?
Next thing I have is a budget amendment, and this one fell through the cracks. We didn't pay our rent at the Las Casas Convenience Center last year, for half of last year, basically. So the money never was spent out of last year's budget, which wound up rolling back into our fund balance. So what we're asking for is to pull that money from the fund balance that we should have paid last year to pay the rent that we do owe the owners.
Need a motion, send this on the budget.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, call the roll.
Commissioner Daniel,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Commissioner McAdoo,
Yes.
Commissioner Sparks,
Yes.
Commissioner Williams,
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan.
Yes.
The last thing I have is a contract. The county attorney's office has written that up for us. And basically all we're doing is getting a contract for what we've already been doing for 6 months. That's our electronics collection that we're currently doing at Haley Road. There's no money involved. We don't pay them anything. They don't pay us anything. We're just obligating ourselves that all the electronics that come into the Haley Road site will go on to their trailer for them to come pick up and dispose of it. So we're just asking that this be sent through to the commission so the mayor has the authority to sign the contract.
Where's page 3?
Did I not give you a page 3?
Well, I didn't get page 3.
Was there page 3?
Yeah, there is a page 3.
No, okay. Well, I think.
I made the copies myself, so I probably messed that one
I
up.
got 2 of page 1 and then 1 of page 2.
It just gets to the end and said in accordance with.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's got one there if you want to pass it around. Like.
Well, while we're passing it around, let me ask you a quickie. Is this gonna be something that we'll be renewing every year? Is that the deal?
We hope to, yes, sir.
Okay.
But we don't necessarily have to renew with these people. We could go with someone else if someone else was out there.
This right here, if you make a motion to approve this, we send this contract for 1 year. It'll be renewed each year, whether it's with this same one or somebody else comes along, it'll be up to the landfill director to bring stuff forward.
And if you remember, last year after Christmas, we collected electronics at the same location for 2 days. And we dealt with several different companies to dispose of their electronics, which all of it cost us money. And then started in July, the first week of July is when we started with this company, and we've been doing it with them for 6 months, and we've shipped a little over 500,000 pounds of electronics at no cost to the county other than our employee and the facility itself.
There's a lot of stuff that could have went in landfill, and we couldn't go.
On the road.
On the side of the road, yeah.
And we do pick up quite a bit of it side of the road. The litter crews have gotten now to where when they go through picking up the side of the roads, they get electronics, they'll put it on a certain part of the trailer and they'll swing by and drop it off as well, instead of taking that to the landfill.
They've been doing a good job over there. Anybody, and y'all went by.
And that's the facility that we're working toward doing the paint collection. Hopefully we'll have that done this year. Hopefully we'd like to have it done by summer, but I'm not going to say that we will.
Move to approve. Second. And flip it, forward it to the full commission.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Anything else?
Nope, that's all I had.
What about this post-closure financial assurance?
No,
Yeah.
That's part of his responsibility, yeah, so he probably doesn't even know about it.
I forgot about it.
Yeah, got it aside.
They all, that's an annual renewal of that post-closure responsibility, so, yeah, that needs to be executed as well, approved. That'd have to go on the budget.
That's where we're obligating ourselves to the state that in case something happens at the landfill, we'll take care of it financially
That's what we do every year.
Every year.
every year. And it actually goes down each year.
same contract we have every year.
That's right.
Hey, Mac, let me ask you, on that electronic waste, does that company incur any liability with the hardware as far as identity theft and that sort of thing? I mean,
No, what we're trying to tell people and let them know that, you know, if you're concerned about your hard drives and all that kind of stuff, you need not leave that down there with us. I mean, we keep it in a locked trailer behind a locked fence, and they do the same thing at their facility, but
Yeah.
we don't have around-the-clock security or anything like that, so we,
And we are not responsible, right?
right.
Okay, I need a motion to approve this annual
Financial assurance.
financial.
So moved.
Second. You call roll.
I'll be happy to.
Okay.
Commissioner Daniel,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Commissioner McAdoo,
Yes.
Commissioner Sparks,
Yes.
Commissioner Williams,
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan.
Yes.
That's all I have.
Ready, thank you. Okay. We'll skip all the way down to the bottle bill review. Mamie, you can come up and give us a report here on this.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners and Ms. Shelton.
You say we come up there or someone else?
You can step up here too if you need to. No, when we get through with it, we'll let anybody else talk. Before we make any decisions.
Okay, if you will pull out the packet that is titled Bottle Bill Review, there's several different sections in them, and if you'll kind of lay them out in the order that they're in, I would appreciate it. I do want to just add one thing before I start talking about the bottle bill, about the pilot program for single-stream recycling in the schools. I've really enjoyed working with the administrators and the faculty and the staff and the students in encouraging this. I've gotten a very favorable response. I did develop a video that's like a training video that they can all look at that helps them to better understand. And I'm really looking forward to starting to add some schools soon. The bottle bill, sometimes it's called a Beverage Container Recycling Act. That's what it's actually officially called in Tennessee. We just sort of in general refer to it as a bottle bill. What I have done is just outline general information to help inform and educate you all. I do this for the purpose of not trying to sway you either way. I just want to give you factual information that you all can use to go from. Of course, the definition of a bottle bill, it just requires a minimum refundable deposit on beer, soft drink, and other beverage containers in order to ensure a high rate of recycling, or in rare instances, reuse. When I was very young, I remember taking the Coke bottles back to the store to get the refund on those. Now, back in those days, it was a treat to get to have a Coke. You know, I think people keep their refrigerators now stocked with soft drinks, but it was a big treat for us to get to have a Coke, and I really remember putting those bottles back into the cardboard containers and taking those back in. Well, that sort of fell out of vogue through the years because they quit using the glass as much and started switching to different technologies such as plastic and aluminum. So, you know, it sort of fell out of vogue. But then there were some states that still wanted to continue it in order to increase their recycling rates. That's basically sort of been just a quick synopsis of the history of bottle bills. There are currently 11 states that have bottle bill legislation. 3 of those states have been undergoing proposed changes. Connecticut, basically they wanted to add bottled water to the list of accepted beverages, and then they wanted to pass to make unclaimed deposits the property of the state. In Delaware, this past June, there was a bill to repeal the deposit law. It was introduced in the House of Representatives, and the main argument behind the bill was that a significant portion of citizens already have access to curbside recycling, and so they felt that the beverage container deposit law was unnecessary and even detrimental to the other programs. Now, it passed in the House and Senate, but then the bill was ultimately vetoed by the governor. And then Oregon, they've actually, a bill has been submitted to increase the deposit and add certain alcoholic beverages. I'll turn to the back of that page. These are the states with current campaigns. Let's see, there's 1, 2, 3. About 10 states that have current campaigns to have the bottle bill, and they're all just sort of in different stages. In Florida, the bill died in May of 2009. Couldn't find anything on whether it'll be reintroduced. In Maryland, a bill was proposed to set up a task force consisting of delegates, senators, and county recycling officials to study the bottle bills. It was referred to there by a different committee where it was reported unfavorable about that committee. So I guess it sort of stalled for now there. No action has been taken yet in Minnesota, New Hampshire, New Jersey. New Mexico, the bill died in February of 2009, but it could be reintroduced. Same thing with North Carolina. Virginia, they've tried 7 years in a row to try to get it. So these are the states that there's sort of some current action still going on. I thought that might be useful to you to kind of understand what's going on in national level rather than just here. And then there are some states that have had unsuccessful bottle bill campaigns to date that have just, I think that there's really been no action in the last 2 years. And when I say the USA, I included that because there have been attempts on a national level to encourage bottle bills, and it just really has not come to fruition yet. Now, I've copied part of the proposed legislation. It's Michael Ray McDonald is the primary sponsor. The containers that are covered are glass, aluminum, and steel. Bimetals are plastic containing edible beverages, and that would include up to 2-liter bottles. Basically, the things that would not be covered would be milk, unmixed wine and liquor, medicines and liquid food. In California, for example, I believe they've either proposed it or they're trying to, or they may already have it, but their medicines are actually included in the bottle bill there. Okay. The deposit is 5 cents, and that fee goes into a fund called the Container Recovery Fee, which is paid by 1 cent of that is paid by the distributor to the program, and then there's a handling fee paid by the program to the redemption center, which is usually 1 cent, but it could go up to 2 cents. So in other words, if you operate a convenience center or a redemption center, you would get 1 cent back for every container that you agree to recycle. And then, of course, there's an administrative fee. These funds, when you pay your 5 cents up front, let's say that you buy a 6-pack of Coke, you're going to pay 30 cents up front. Well, if you take it to a redemption center, the citizen gets all 30 cents back. Where this other money comes into being is that's going to have to come from the unredeemed containers. So even though we really want to see recycling increase, in order to make this a program effective, is they have to assume that there are going to be certain citizens that won't redeem their containers, and that's where the leftover part is. Let's see. If you look under general information in the first bullet point, a fund will be created in advance called the Deposit Beverage Container Fund. It's created in the State Treasury by the Department of Revenue, and I think it's going to be managed by an administrative entity within the Division of Solid Waste Management under TDEC. We'll turn to the back of that page. I've already gone over the beverages that are included and excluded, but I got a little bit more specific here. Once again, redemption centers are guaranteed a 1 cent per container plus the additional scrap value. Now that rebate will fluctuate with the commodity value at the time. Currently, I recently called one of the recycling centers. It typically takes around 30 cans to create a pound. And this center that I called, just this this in this community, they're paying 70 cents per pound. So that would be about 60 to 70 cans to make up, or excuse me, they're paying 70 cents per pound. Does that make sense? And you get about 30 cans, 30 to 34 cans in a pound. So in addition to the 1 cent that they would get back, the redemption centers would get back, then they would also be able to process it and sell it to whomever. Now, the different methods for redemption, should be drop-off redemption centers, which are certified redemption centers. Typically, those would be located adjacent to a participating grocery store. Then there's something called micro-site redemption centers that are portable, attended, roll-off trailers, and they're designed to serve as a certified redemption center and typically located in the parking lot of a host grocery store. Then there's something called mobile redemption centers, which are certified redemption centers designed to bring redemption services to residences, institutions, conventions. Basically, they're on wheels and they go to certain locations to do events. It can be one-time events or it could be an ongoing regular service. And there's something called reverse vending machines. If you look at this, I included a copy of one. Tomra is one of the manufacturers of these. A reverse vending machine is a self-service certified redemption center into which a consumer feeds the empty deposit beverage containers. In turn, the RVM issues a refund in the form of either a redeemable credit slip, cash, or donation to a designated charity. Now, I have emailed several times this company. This just happens to be one of the manufacturers that I was able to find out about. I wanted to show you pictures of what they look like. It looks like a vending machine. It has a capacity of up to 500 containers. It can handle 20 containers per minute. So basically somebody could go up to one of these, put their containers in there, and then either get a rebate or a slip to take to a vendor or to take to someone that would pay them. Something that Californians set up is they have these kiosk type things, if you look on the back, where residents are able to go and to get their redemption there. And evidently, is stipulated by California state law. Those have to be located typically covering a half-mile radius from a supermarket. Okay, so this sort of gives you an idea of what redemption centers could look like. I was not able to get a quote from these folks because I called or I emailed and said I'd like to know typically what one of these reverse vending machines would cost. They never got back to me, but a trusted source told me typically those are about $20,000 to $25,000. Evidently, they lease them as well. So that would be a possibility for someone who was interested in doing that. And if you look down to the next arrow, it says retailers will not be required to collect empty containers. It's my understanding that in previous attempts at this bottle bill, retail stores were going to be required to take back the containers. And they took that out, and my understanding is they took it out to make it more palatable because the retailers were upset at having to take it back because they would have to change their infrastructure. I believe that they would probably not be allowed to do it inside the grocery store, which means they would have to set up kiosks or something outside. Of course, that would be subject to zoning regulations where they are. So they took that out so that they would no longer be required to do it. So in other words, if you go buy your 6-pack tonight at Kroger, and then the next time you go to Kroger next week, you will not be able to get your redemption from them unless they choose to do it. Now, they can voluntarily enter the program if they choose to. Also, local governments will not be required to operate certified redemption centers in conjunction with existing recycling programs. Now, the advocates of this feel that there's enough value for this to be privatized. When you look at the little kiosks in the parking lots in California, those are private industries that are doing that. So they feel like that the advocates of this feel like it could be privatized and we would not be held responsible. Then, when, did you all get a copy of this?
Of the actual bill itself, the 31 pages of the bill that's been,
You didn't get it tonight, but did you get it in your box sometimes earlier?
if they didn't get it, I didn't give it to them, okay?
Okay.
It's a very complex
Yes.
bill that does cover 31 pages, and it's
Yes.
very, very regulated process that's defined there.
When you read through this, what became aware to me, I became aware of rather, was this is a proposal. Once this legislation passes, then the package goes to, I'm assuming it'll be TDEC, to promulgate the rules. So we still don't know what the rules are specifically. They're not outlined specifically on exactly how it'll be done.
It's really going to be managed and controlled by the Solid Waste Board.
Mm-hmm.
And they're authorized to promulgate rules, regulations, and hire staff.
That's under
This-
Section 13.
This is a $250 million revenue per fiscal note on this bill, that it will generate revenue and expenses of those kinds of dollars. It's huge.
Now, when you look under Section 16, it does say the board shall promulgate by rule the definition of an underserved area, because there may be some counties or some areas that are underserved because no one has taken the challenge to do it. With regard to certified redemption centers, if an area is underserved according to this definition, the department, with input from the affected county, should use its best efforts to see that a certified redemption center or microsite is established in that area. So they still could, if somebody is not serving an area, the state can come in, and I'm not sure exactly how much pressure they could put on certain individuals to open them, but it says also the department shall establish criteria to determine the number of certified redemption centers needed to adequately serve each county based on population density, population distribution, and consultation with respective counties in that area. So I guess if you all can get a copy of this and look at it, understand with how it's written, there still will be rules that will come from this. But as of right now, or the way it reads, we're not actually going to be responsible for having one. Now,
But if somehow there are not enough, then somebody's going to have to provide them.
exactly. And since the rules aren't laid out yet, we don't know that. Now, if you look at the common arguments in support of the bottle bill, I really made an effort to do a lot of research to be as objective in presenting the information to you tonight. I did just a ton of research, and so these are the ones that I was able to come up with that I saw as common arguments in support of the bottle bill. They believe that it increases recycling rates, that it reduces litter. They believe because of hand sorting, it creates higher quality recyclables. In other words, people don't just go in and throw everything in together. The single stream, typically a single stream recycling commodity is not going to be as good of a quality because there's been so many things mixed in with it. They're separated, but still it's typically going to be a little dirtier. So they believe it'll create higher quality recyclables. They believe that it generates a steady stream for local scrap yards and processors. Also, that counties and solid waste regions that have not yet achieved the 25% diversion mandate are more likely to do so if they become certified redemption centers. So for some of the counties that have fallen behind, that's something that would help them. Of course, it prolongs the life of Tennessee landfills. Bottle bills are self-supporting and place no demands on municipal, county, or state budgets. It creates fundraising opportunities for community causes and programs. In some of the, like the take-back centers in other states, you can actually designate to a charity where you want that money to go. Also, sometimes not-for-profit agencies will decide to be the ones to go ahead and run redemption centers to try to create some revenue for themselves. And if you look at the next bullet point that I have in bold print, it claims that discarded bottles and cans are the #1 component of litter in Tennessee, comprising roughly half of Tennessee's roadside litter volume. And that came from the Tennessee Bottle Bill website. Now, if you'll turn to the next page, these are common arguments that I uncovered that are in opposition of the bottle bill. They believe that it undermines more comprehensive recycling efforts. Basically, programs that you already have in place would be replicated, but with just in a different method. When you think about, for example, curbside collection entities. Here in this community, we have private citizens that have started businesses to do curbside recycling. Well, they would lose the plastic, and they don't accept glass, but they would lose the plastic and the aluminum. Plastic they're not getting anything for, but they would lose the aluminum from that already system that's in place, and that is one of the more valuable commodities. Another argument that says that it creates incentives for fraud, theft, and scavenging. In locations where these are, you're going to have to keep them secure. Now, there's different methods. If you hand sort, if it goes into the machines, it automatically cancels it out. But if you hand sort, you can either do it by hand and say, if you get a bag of stuff in, you count them out by hand. Or they have like it's almost like a scanner in grocery stores where they can scan them. Nonetheless, and that should cancel the container out. Nonetheless, there are some people who argue that there is scavenging and fraud and theft. Hand sorting is actually labor intensive and expensive compared to just throwing everything in together. This one is interesting, that it increases emissions because of additional consumer and commercial vehicle traffic to redeem and collect containers when current recycling programs are already in existence. So in other words, if you buy your 6-pack of Coke and then you go to the grocery store next week, you can't redeem it there unless they voluntarily decide to be in the program, which means you have to take an additional step and take it to a redemption center. So that's something to consider. Consumers are faced with inconvenient options to redeem their deposits, perhaps, especially in some of the more remote counties. One of the other arguments that I discovered were local governments lose commodity revenue when bottles, and especially aluminum cans that are currently recycled, are shifted into redemption centers. You're basically replicating a system, but just in a different method. It says it also only addresses a small portion of the waste stream at the expense of selected industries. Typically, the industries would be the bottlers because of what they have to pay. Now, this was interesting. I've also put this in bold for you to see, and I got this information from the Keep Tennessee Beautiful website. But they did a waste survey as well, and they claimed that beer and soft drink containers account for only 4.1% of litter, and that juice, wine, liquor, and water containers account for only about 1.3% of litter. Therefore, the total percentage of litter from discarded beverage material is 5.4%. So that was what one survey said. But if you'll remember over here, another survey said that it was actually 50% when you're looking at your litter. So I guess depending on how the study was done or who did the study, the information is somewhat different. Okay, once again, in an effort to be as fair as possible, I've given you information. One of the things is called Pride of Place. This was something that came from Marge Davis, who is the big proponent of the bottle bill, who's been working so diligently to try to get it passed. There's a lot of information. I don't think you'll be able to consume it all tonight, but it's certainly good reading material to look at. If you'll go to the second page, is frequently asked questions. Number one is, when our county lose its annual litter grant? The litter grant is going to be just basically rerouted and renamed. It will stop in the method that it's being collected now. It's just going to be rerouted under a different name. And I believe they have plans to still send it through TDOT. But that money, once again, is going to come from the unclaimed deposits. And they anticipate there being a large enough volume of unclaimed deposits. So this is good information for you to look through. She's included annual consumption, redemption, and revenue projections for you to look at. She also, the University of Tennessee, did a survey. Some states have reduced litter and increased recycling rates by placing a deposit, and they wanted to know what citizens thought, and so they have, she has a pie graph of the survey there. So that's something for you to look at. And then the next thing, in order to be completely fair and objective, I'm once again presenting information. This is a statement from Kevin Deatley to the TDEC Waste Reduction Task Force. Now, 2 years ago, I served on the TDEC, that Waste Reduction Task Force. It was a 23-member panel, and we spent 9 months coming up with what we believe to be very good solid waste reduction measures. It's been kicked around for the last couple of years. Some changes have been made to the initial wording, but I believe it's ready to probably be passed sometime within the near future. Once it's passed, there'll be once again some rules and regulations that we're going to have to follow to try to reduce our solid waste. This was presented to us, so I feel like this is should be a valid document for you all to look at. It was presented to us on March 20th in '08. Mrs. Davis came that day and presented the pride of place and presented what she wanted us to know about in support of the bottle bill. But this is a report that someone did, and he was from the Northbridge Environmental Management Consultants in Westford, Massachusetts, and he is evidently in opposition of bottle bills, and he gives a number of reasons why and helps to outline it. So since this was something that came from my experience at TDEC, I thought this would be valid for you all to look at as well. Now at this point, do you have any questions of me?
Where has this program been implemented successfully?
Well, there are 11 states that have bottle bills.
And those bottle bills have been in place for many, many years in those states. I don't know, the most current state is, I don't know how many years ago, Hawaii, I think.
Yeah, I think it's probably Hawaii.
But most of these bills have been in place for a long, long time. There hasn't been any recent additions except maybe that Hawaii state, I believe, I'm not sure.
And then on page 2, I listed the states where it's been tried and it's just not going anywhere. It just they keep banging their head against the wall. And then the states where it's just been unsuccessful, there's been no action for at least 2 years when I looked at their legislative journals.
When you take a state like Tennessee, where we border so many other states, if we opt in, wouldn't that drive consumers to the surrounding states?
That would be one of the arguments
product.
that opponents would say, that it would just, if you live in a neighboring state, that you go next door to, but people do that already to get their gas and other things probably, or to go out their groceries if they don't have as high of a sales tax. Definitely they would do that. But supposedly with, as far as the fraud goes, with the labeling system, we hope that would limit the fraud. Now this also applies to, the bottlers are the ones that are really taking the brunt of a lot of this, because they're going to have to change their systems to mark these containers. They also have to pay some, well, they're already paying 1/8 of a cent per container, which goes to the litter grant. They're going to continue paying that in an effort to keep the litter grant going. Like I said, it'll be renamed. But there is that possibility of that happening as well.
So the litter grant money will not be on to help fund this. It will still go to the same.
They're changing the source of the litter grant money. They're going to hold the litter grant at $5.8 million. That's how many dollars they're spending currently. They're going to hold it harmless. You're not going to get any more or any less. But through the process of this, they are projecting that those numbers will stay the same.
From the unclaimed deposits.
Yeah, it's not coming from the same source of revenue, but the way they've crafted this, you should still get the same money.
It seems odd that the one state wants to take the unredeemed deposits.
Yeah.
Which is funding the project, or partially funding.
Yeah.
And wanting it to go back to the state.
Well, and I've heard different things. I have
strange.
not, I mean, there's so much research that went into this, just these few pages to try to hone it down to make it, I've been up here almost 20 minutes so far. I've heard that in California that they've, the state is already having, I really probably shouldn't say, but with the rumors I've heard, but some states can actually take that money to fund other things if there's extra money in the fund, is what I'm understanding.
Well, we're going to create another arm of bureaucracy. And I'm afraid that that's going to eventually eat up the revenue that's funding the program.
Are you familiar with this? Oh, excuse me, I thought you were through. Are you familiar with this dot number? Well, it's not numbered, but count the third dot under 7.
Mm-hmm.
It says San Francisco's, first, recycling programs don't need containers to thrive. In 2006, San Francisco's recycling program netted $23.9 million, while Metro Nashville, with roughly the same population, lost $1.6 million, $2.1 million in costs against just $470,000 in revenue. Now, what kind of legislation has Metro Nashville just got to free hand on that stuff?
Metro Nashville has some program called Kirby, and I'm not sure how many households it services, but it's a voluntary program where you can recycle. They provide citizens in the program areas with a large container, much like a trash can. And I think they pick up maybe, I'm not sure if they pick up every other week or every week or every other week. Because it's voluntary, they could get participation as low as 14% in some areas and then as high as 40 or 50% in some areas. Tennessee does not have mandatory recycling. There's nowhere that has that. In the states that have the highest recycling rates, like Washington State, for example, it's mandatory in most communities that you recycle. You know, they've even changed out trash can sizes. They give you a small trash can, a large recycling container. In Seattle proper, if you put like cardboard or yard waste into your trash can, you're fined $50. So it depends on what your state and or your local laws are, and if citizens are forced to do it, or if they lose access to as much garbage pickup. I know in some locations they only pick up their trash every other week, but they provide a recycling container, so they're kind of forcing citizens into it. You get really high recycling rates. Those are comprehensive programs where you get high recycling rates. Oftentimes folks have to be kind of forced into it.
Well, now, earlier you pointed out that they were saying, or you told us, I believe, that Tomra, one of their machines, cost $25,000.
This one.
Yes.
That's what I've been told, but I'm not verified it. I think they've been on an extended vacation with Christmas, because they haven't responded to my emails. And on their website, they don't list the price, because I'm sure it depends on how many you're purchasing. And, I believe they also lease them. But it was actually Miss Davis that told me typically $20,000 to $25,000 for a reverse vending machine.
And you said they're in California?
Yes, they're also in Connecticut. I believe they're in New York as well. Let's see, it's not apparently any larger than one of the larger vending machines. You just have to plug it in. They accept, it can hold up to 500 containers. Okay, so if you're getting 1 penny back for each container, that would be what, $25 that you would get for each full load the Redemption Center would get?
Seems like you'd have to be picking those containers up with great frequency if there's any volume at all.
Because how long, I was curious as to how long it took them to amortize the expense of that $25,000 in startup.
This might be a good time for Mac to come up here, because he and I ran some numbers today, and I was going to...
You'd have to empty that machine 5,000 times to break even.
Well, we actually ran the numbers on it today.
That's just a break even.
These are similar to machines I've seen in Nashville for the cans.
Oh, really?
You just take your cans and get the money for them.
Yeah.
Per pound.
Yeah.
Well, I think they hold more than 500, it's the things that I've seen, but that might not be.
Do these
are manufacturer specs, though.
Okay.
These don't come.
Yeah, that's what it says here, yeah.
So we ran the numbers because we're thinking, okay, if we bought one of those at, let's say, $20,000, and it takes up to 500, and you get a penny back for each, so you're going to have 500 cents, which is, I think, $25?
$5.
$5. Oh. So you would have $5 back from a full container. But I believe these are, you can lease these as well. You know, we're just not far enough down the pike to really investigate that much. So my numbers are very...
Well, I was just, more or less curious as to whether Dr. Davis's numbers here, or the one she reports, are actually demonstrated, or whether they're still in the process of being refined and defined, so we know what the real bottom line is out of putting a machine in.
Well, I mean, all of these redemption centers have to be certified. They have to make application. The state somehow will determine who is capable of providing this service in what location. All of these centers will have to get zoning approval from the local municipality to put them in there. It's a pretty complex process to actually make this happen. It's going to be a business decision as to whether you put one there or not. And plus, you do get the value of the commodity that you do sell, in addition to that 1 cent, of course. But
well, like in Murfreesboro, for example, when we placed our Haley Road site and our Sam site, we had to be 500 feet from any residential. That was part of the criteria. We also were not allowed to be a certain number of feet from the front of a business or from the roadway, because they're trying to make things look nice. So I would assuming if this happens, Murfreesboro would have to look at perhaps changing some of their guidelines in order to make it practical.
I called the Murfreesboro office today to pose the hypothetical question. You know, if we were to want to place one, then everybody was out to lunch and things, so I didn't get an answer on that. But with the criteria that we have to meet for the Haley site and the Sam site, the two Kroger sites that used to be in existence, are about the only sites here in the city that would be available for that. The mayor and I discussed it. You know, we've got 14 convenience centers, so, you know, could they be redemption centers? To do that, you'd have to have more manpower. You'd have to have container storage or storage areas for that, which all would, you know, cost extra money. I like the idea behind this program. I really like it, and I admire them at their attempt. I think the program is not far enough along yet to make a good sound decision, because there's a lot of rules left out there that we just don't know the answer to.
Well, and I can think of, you know, I don't know whether you call it the Tiger Hill Convenience Center or whatnot. That doesn't handle a whole lot of traffic. If you know, I can see the cars going in and coming out, and you add on top of that those that are just coming to do this, and we'd have to reconfigure or do something to take care of that.
Ideally, for citizens, they should be able to get the rebate from where they purchased. But stores aren't going to be required to do it. So if they're not required, I have no idea whether they would make a business decision to go ahead and try to do that. They would have to run their numbers to see. But, you know, when you look at how it's written, that the rules for underserved areas would then be made by TDAC, that kind of leaves a little bit unanswered.
That was one of the things I was looking at here. If a state is gonna come up with a bill on this to make something like this work, in my opinion, places like that, it's gonna have to be in that bill somewhere or another. They're gonna have to have them at location like that if you wanna get the top participants on the program. I mean, I'm sort of like a mayor. I think everybody wants to do recycling, and I know the county's doing all they can. Me personally, I just think we need to get more information, and we ain't under no restraints to jump right in on it right now. I'm not saying we need to vote down, vote far against or nothing, but you know, that's just one opinion.
Could I know that this is not normal, but because I.
Hold on just a minute.
Oh, I'm sorry, thank you.
I'm gonna let any other member, if they got anything to say, and then if anybody in the audience wants to speak, and we'll let them. But I'll let in
We really just have a piece of this right now, and I don't think we have enough to make the right decision or a wise decision. But I know we need, or I think we need other people coming to us with more information, and hopefully we can dig up more information on it and find out some more from the state, from the other entities. And
if you could read the complete packet that I've given you, and then also get a copy of the bill, I think that would help you all.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I
Mr.
was.
Chairman, I would move that we suspend the rules. I think this is Dr. Davis back here, is that right? And let her come up and address any of this too, if she's like.
I would like that if you could.
Unless he gets a second, I want to see if anybody else on this committee had anything to say first.
Well, the only thing I'd like to say on it is, I would just like to get more information.
I think that's what I'm trying to say.
I would just like to see us postpone this until we can all get a copy of the bill, have the opportunity to read through everything that Mimi's had, and bring it back up to us in February to have further discussion on it, because I think we agree with the concept, but typically agreeing with the concept doesn't always get you where you want to be if you don't have the details that are going through this. So regardless of what's discussed here tonight, until we get a copy of the bill and get some more answers, last night when we had an opportunity to talk to our legislators, they really were unaware of this particular bill.
Yeah,
It wasn't on their radar, their close thing, so we may need to have some more dialogue with them. I mean, I'd asked for some more information from them last night, but they knew that this bill had been proposed in the past, but the items that were in it in the past had been killed in committee because of various problems that were in it. So maybe they now have a revised version that's gonna work good, but I don't think any of us have enough information now to move forward with.
I'm not suggesting necessarily that we do move forward with it. I'm just suggesting that since we have the person who wrote the letter that Mimi's referring to, and the expert, I understand.
We're gonna let the expert speak here in just a minute.
No,
I just wanna make sure this committee got through and go by the rules, and then we're gonna do it, Mr. Daniel.
Yes, but one of my persistent complaints about the process and procedure that we follow, and I'm not against order, and I'm definitely in agreement with your ruling, Mr. Chairman, but is that so often we do these things and we don't really know who the people out there are, and we don't hold what I would call legislative type hearings, which would be much more beneficial to people like me that like to look below the surface.
I understand that.
I'll have to disagree, if I understood what you said. 'Cause I've been up here with 16 years. I've never seen one meeting where the public didn't have an opportunity to speak if they had something to say. We always invite them to speak. It's the committee's job to have discussion and then to listen to them and then discuss what we've heard from them too.
But the difference is we often do not solicit real expert opinion on the matters that come before us. We don't go out to the people that know and ask them to come in. And that's my frustration with our process.
Well, you would think you would think our legislature in the state that's writing this bill would be getting with a lot of them experts, and when we get a copy of that bill, all this stuff should be in there. Is what I'm gonna be looking at. If it ain't, that's what I got a hold up right now. What I can make my decision. Not, I won't know what the bill said, what we're gonna be would even be trying to get out there.
And when you opened up discussion, my first statement was that we would get anybody we could to bring in more information, to give us the information that's out there.
I think we want all the information we can get.
I miscommunicated with the mayor's office. I thought that you all had already received copies of the bill. But I did try to present both sides in a timely manner with as much information as I was able to garner that seemed to be common information for both sides.
I think Commissioner Sparks.
I was just gonna ask Mimi, what's the main premise why this needs to be approved? Or what's the whole underlying reason? Is it to promote recycling, to improve litter?
Both. Once again, I'm speaking on behalf of people that are for this, from what I understand. They believe that it improves litter.
I would see it.
But it does. But, it depends on, is it our litter at 5%, which one survey said, or is it 50%, which another survey said, that the containers comprise, that percentage. Because there's two different studies.
If it's just take 5, I think it's much more than that, but if it's 5%, and you go to all this trouble, you've still got 95% litter out there.
Well, and see, some people would say, well, yes, people are going to go around and pick up bottles and cans because they can go and get 5 cents for them, but they leave the rest of the litter on the road.
We still have what we have in place now that's already out there working that hits 100%.
Correct.
You see what I'm saying?
But hopefully there'll still be funding for that.
Well, if you look at Tennessee, I'd say that geographically we've got to be the worst state If we implemented this and all the other states didn't, then the potential for fraud is enormous. For somebody from Bowling Green coming in and redeeming.
Well,
These
all the
products,
containers would
still-
have to be labeled. The distributors, whether it's bottled here or bottled in a neighboring state and shipped here, they would be required to put a stamp on there saying that it's part of the Tennessee Bottle Bill.
Other
it
words,
It
If it
requires
doesn't have a
sorting.
stamp on it, you don't get it. You can't go to Texas and buy you 2 semi-truckloads of bottles and bring them in your
But how do you take
I know you're
Memphis?
thinking about that.
You look at Memphis or Chattanooga, it's right there on the border.
The redemption centers, when you brought those bottles to them, they would not be labeled and identified in such a way that you could accept them. There are
But you have to hand
penalties
sort
for
it.
trying to do that, severe penalties.
There are severe penalties for fraud, but we're going to require labor for somebody to scan every one, either using like a reverse vending machine or just a regular electronic scanner.
You know,
So that should take care of that.
it just seems like what we've got in place now, if you just enforce the rules that you have, if the police would cite people for litter, if the deputies would cite people for litter, you know, it is rampant, and I don't think people take it seriously, and just improve what we've got, rather than going through layers of bureaucracy. And would the mayor say 31 pages? And I don't, from what I see from the mayor, he's not comfortable with it.
Well, it's complex. I think it needs a lot more study and a lot more review. I mean, we've got time to carefully and thoughtfully review
When you
this.
look at these other states that have concerns, I was seeing that, and there's several of them that have concerns. You know, I think this whole committee is for recycling. I think we've made some tremendous strides up here with a lot of your help, Mimi, and Mac's help. I just think that does need some more discussion, like the Commissioner Daniel's saying, but it just seems like if we improved on what we're doing, and what frustrates me with littering and trash people, I don't think, and no, all due respect to our sheriff, I don't think the police take it seriously. To me, write some of these people a $250 fine, $500 fine, set an example out of some of them, let it get publicized, and you put a stop to some of this.
We do have some new state laws, some state litter laws I'd be happy to provide information for to you all to make you aware, because the way I believe they've made it, I haven't done much research yet, but usually you have to appear in court.
See, I don't think
But they try to make a
judges take it
shipment.
seriously.
I think that you just pay the fine and that's it.
Yeah, I don't think they take it seriously,
Yeah.
you know.
Now, when I was talking earlier about what TDEC has proposed, 2 years ago I was on that committee, and it still has not gone through, but if that passes, what that particular committee, that was comprised of 23 solid waste and environmental professionals, their recommendation was us to start on a 4-tier system. So basically the counties who really aren't doing any recycling at all, because we wanted to get them up to a 20% waste reduction level. So they would have, they have a tier system where they would have recommendations of things that you can do. The easiest and most inexpensive first, but they really want to bring each county all the way up to the 4th tier. And there's a generous number of years that are allowed for counties to move through those different tiers. But it's basically a blueprint, and it's comprehensive. It includes everything in the waste stream. So that is also something that's in the works as well that we may be seeing.
Let's get back to, on this subject where we are now. Has anybody got anything else you want to say? If not,
I would like to say one other thing,
yes,
Mr. Chairman. If knowing the way the legislature works, they have a relatively short session, and their opportunities for study among the whole bunch and not just the committees is limited. And the more accurate information and a package that some legislator who's busy and has been looking at how long we keep people in prison and all these other things, as we want to draw attention, can be handed and reviewed on behalf of, the county forwarding it up to the legislators, that's a real plus.
it is if we know what we was forwarding it to them.
Yeah,
We
that's
ain't
right.
got to be
We
able
need
to look
to
at
know.
what we're gonna be forwarding. That's what we're saying. We're asking to get a copy of that, be to us as soon as we can get it. and
It'll
see
be in
where
your
we're at.
box, it'll be in your box tomorrow morning.
Yeah, well, so
I mean,
I'm in
I-
agreement with you on that. But I just think
mean,
that.
I
if we
think
can-
you'll find, or I have, all the commissioners that I've talked to up here, I don't think you're gonna find nobody that ain't wanting to do recycling. Everybody knows it needs to be done, and we just gotta find out what's the best way to do it and the most efficient. And I think that's what the state will be looking at too.
But Mimi, wouldn't you, with implementing this, across the board, your cost is gonna go up 5 cents on, basically on every container, every drink. And that goes back to my argument about Tennessee. If we implemented it, and all those people, and I forgot what the figure is, Mayor, you may know, isn't it 30-40% of the people live within 25 miles of the state border?
I don't know,
I mean, you just encourage people to shop with our high sales tax is what I'm saying. You encourage people to shop in Bowling Green, for example. You know, if you're gonna get soft drinks and food and everything, that's what you're gonna do. And to me, I think we're gonna really put ourselves in a bind if we implemented this and other states didn't do it.
In a discussion with Ms. Davis, she had told me that typically bottle bill states, the cost of beverages is lower than non-bottle bill states.
We got Miss Davis here, we're gonna
let her talk
speak
to
in
that.
just a minute. We'll get all of her information. Anybody hadn't got anything else, we'll let,
Well, do we need to vote on my motion to
yeah, we're
suspend
gonna
the
suspend the
rules?
rules. Yes, sir. We got a motion to suspend the rules.
I don't have a second.
Need a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're suspending rules. This lady right
Can I
here.
sit here?
Yes,
Miss
ma'am.
Davis.
Just, state your name and all, and we'll.
Thank you so much. I'm Marge Davis, and I am the Chief Citizen Coordinator of this effort to have a bottle bill. It's a nonprofit effort. I don't get paid to do this. It's just my passion. And it is a very complex bill to understand. I absolutely agree with that. There are a lot of moving parts, and it takes people a long time to to understand them all. Couple of things I did want to clarify. When Mimi was talking about the money that comes from the beverage companies into the fund, there is an amendment that was passed last session in Senate Environment Committee that was approved, so it's part of the bill now. It just hasn't been sort of folded in. So that 31 pages, there's an amendment to it. It'll still be about 31 pages because some things got knocked out. But what that amendment stipulates is that the beverage companies, they don't pay a penny in, which was the earlier version. They pay 1/8 of a penny, and that's equivalent to what they pay right now for the litter tax on soda and beer. That's what funds the litter grants. So in effect, the beverage companies continue to pay for the litter grants, which the formula doesn't change. It runs through TDOT. County governments get it on September 1st, according to the way the legislation is set up. So the beverage companies don't pay any new costs under this bill, but they really just are continuing to pay for the litter grants. And that's the only way the legislators would go for it, because they didn't want to add a cost to the beverage companies. So that's the main thing I wanted to point out. And another thing I wanted to point out, just because it's driving the bill right now, the recycling is important, the litter almost is like a bonus. It's the need of the companies that buy this stuff. We're getting a lot of help from industries, glass, plastic, and aluminum, who are lobbying this bill with us. They need this stuff. They like it in the quality that comes with the bottle bill. They have tried all the voluntary methods over the years, and in the last 2 years, all 3 of the big trade groups that represent those 3 industries have changed their old positions of opposition to bottle bills and are now supporting bottle bills that look like Tennessee's bill, which does not require retail return. It does not impose a separate handling fee on the distributors, and it doesn't require the distributor to be the pickup agent. So those have always been typically 3 biggest objections to bottle bills, that it imposes a tax on the beverage companies. that it dirties up grocery stores and markets, etc. So because bottle bills do deliver, typically 80% of containers get returned under a bottle bill. Tennessee right now is about 10%. So that's collectively glass, plastic, and aluminum, but we cannot seem to get out of that rut of 10%. So even if you're only addressing beverage containers, and it's only 5% of the solid waste stream, true, but you do sort of have this trickle down impact of bottle bills where you get higher recycling rates for other things because people start recycling. But back to the specific commodities, PET, number one, number two, plastic, the aluminum, and the glass, you're getting, you're increasing 800-fold what we're getting now. And the companies that buy this stuff, including several right here in Tennessee, whether it's Alcoa, whether it's Noranda Aluminum, whether it's Eastman Chemical, whether it's Mohawk and all the carpet makers over in Georgia, whether it's Strategic Materials, the largest glass recycler in North America, has a plant here, they all, frankly, are eager to see more bottle bills pass because the 11 states that do this are holding up recycling rates nationwide. Almost 48% of beverage containers recycled in the U.S. come from those states. So, excuse me, I get very dry. Should bring my own water bottle. So that's a big part of the argument, and that has to be considered, I think, because in addition to the litter benefits, what's the end use of these items? And even when you have curbside and even when you have drop-off bins, a study just came out last month about how when you've got that mixed up product, some of it winds up landfill anyway because it can't be unsorted. One guy from the industry said it's like trying to unscramble the egg. They say as much as 50% of glass goes into the landfill when it comes out of curbside because of that mixing and the breakage, etc. So it's not a perfect system, no, but we figure that it's very close to perfect for beverage container scrap, which is high value. Under our bill, the redemption centers can take back other commodities as well. They're not going to pay out a deposit for it because it hasn't been paid in, but they can process that other material, which privatizes in a way, what you're already doing. You really could consider giving up the county-run convenience center model to the privatized system. And that's not guaranteed in the bill, it's just allowed in the bill. And you will have plenty of redemption centers. The fear, and we've been looking at this for a long time, talking to a lot of mom and pop entrepreneurs, talking to shelters for the homeless, whatever. There are a lot of people who would like to make, the average gross is going to be about $250,000 a year. That's spread out statewide. Now, small counties will be less, bigger counties will be more, but there'll be about 500 redemption centers. They're not going to be quite as convenient as the corner store, but they're going to be within an easy drive. And the final thing I'll say is I come from one of these states. I'm from the state of Maine. I moved here in '79 when Maine's bottle bill went into effect. It had been in effect 1 year. It almost didn't pass when it first got passed by citizen referendum. Within 2 years, 1 year after implementation, there was an effort to repeal it. It passed by over 80%. It had gone from barely 50% support to over 80% after 1 year of implementation. Citizens love these bills. It's a strange thing. They like that the bills clean up the roadsides. They feel proud of themselves for doing it. They have the highest recycling rates in the nation, bar none, for beverage containers, and they tend to have much higher overall recycling rates for other commodities, whether it's newspaper, whatever. And when you have the newspaper and the cardboard that aren't being mixed up with the glass, the plastic, the bits of aluminum, you have a higher quality of product that comes out. So they talk about the end use of products. The professionals in the industry like to point out that you don't just keep it from going to landfill, you've got to look at how it winds up. And they talk about closed loop recycling and and looping recycling, can't think of the right word, but if say glass goes into fiberglass, that's the end of the line. It doesn't go any further. But if a glass bottle goes into a glass bottle, and it can do that ad nauseum, without end, that's the best way. It's the most energy efficient way. And it's the cost of energy drives this discussion among industry people. So I would say that you've been very, very kind to look at this so carefully. Mimi's been a trooper in trying to track down all the information, get all the different pieces, understanding them. It is odd. It's a whole new thing. It doesn't, they talk about creating a new bureaucracy. TDEC is looking at about a $2 million budget allotment, $2 to $3 million to do this. It's really, it's not terribly expensive. It's a fraction of their overall budget. And it all comes out of the roughly 20% of deposits that never get redeemed. And when we say 15 to 20%, remember we consume almost 6 billion containers a year. And so 6 billion, 15% of that leaves a fair pocket of money to pay money to the redemption centers. Don't forget that this is creating jobs. We're talking 500 brand new small businesses that are providing green jobs, often to sort of hard to employ people like the handicapped or the homeless. So take that plus the fact that 80% of the citizens of Tennessee would like to see a 5-cent deposit. And that, I've talked to many a legislator who says he was skeptical at first, and then he started talking to his constituents, and several of them have said this, and said, I'm surprised there is a lot of support for this bill. And I have to say, I don't know which legislators were here last night, but I've been down at Capitol Hill for 5 years now, knocking on doors, talking to both, committee members who are going to vote on the bill and everybody else that I can talk to. And most of them seem to know what it's about. So whether it was Senator Ketron or Donna Rowland or whatever, we've been talking about it, and we have really and truly tried to address all of their legitimate objections. And that's why it's taken 5 years. I mean, we went from having it retailer return with a 3-cent fee to the distributors to no retailer return and no cost increase to the beverage distributors. And around the country, Tennessee is being watched very closely by scrapyards, by again these industry groups, the manufacturers of the containers, and by other states, including almost every state around us, which would like to have a bottle bill. In fact, Georgia is looking at introducing a bill, and who brought that bill up? Not the environmentalists like me, but the plastics industry. They would like to see Georgia get a bottle bill, because in order to feed their industries, they're driving up to New York. They're driving, pulling stuff in from California to get bottle bill scrap. So it really, again, nothing is perfect, but we consider this as a reasonable, good step. And the worries about fraud, again, these bills have been around for upwards of 40 years. State of Maine, where I come from, borders New Hampshire that doesn't have a bottle bill. It doesn't even have a sales tax. And Maine considers that its fraud rate is probably 3 to 5%. And that is built into our projections for our bill, which is, we allow for, say, 5% fraud rate. People, you talk to folks on the border, you talk to grocers on the border, and they'll say, people don't worry about the nickel. They know they're getting it back. They don't drive across the border to do it. And bringing stuff in from other states, yeah, there's a little bit of that, but oddly enough, it's not a big, it has never broken the bank on any bottle bill, including Michigan that has a 97% return rate, and they have the 10-cent, they're the only state that has a 10-cent deposit. So I'll stop talking now, it's getting late, but do continue to look at it. This is what legislators have been doing. We now have 15 sponsors, bipartisan. We're going to have probably both a Republican and a Democrat carrying the bill in both houses, as well as all the additional co-sponsors. And I do believe that with the sort of support we're getting from the manufacturing industries, this bill will make its way through, hopefully this session. But if not, if I can keep this up another year, maybe it'll, if it doesn't pass this year, then down the line. But I think I think the time is right for this bill. So, thank you so much.
We appreciate you coming to the meeting, and appreciate you giving us all this information. I think it was well put, and we'll continue to study this and try to do what's the right thing.
I really appreciate you pursuing this. A lot of people don't get involved in anything, and if everybody would get involved a little bit, we'd sure be in a lot better shape.
It's been the best way to spend the last 5 years that
Is anyone else?
I'd just like to, my name's Randall Branch, and I live in the county. I've been here about 30 years. One of the first jobs I had here was working at Reedyville Mill when it was still running in the late 70s.
You live up there close to where I live.
Yeah. I've always enjoyed being outdoors, being on the river, canoeing, fishing. At one time I was concerned with, well, like Mimi, I picked up the glass and recycled the bottles when you could get redemption for it. And then that went away, and then we started seeing broken glass in the rivers. We couldn't go swimming in the rivers. My kids couldn't walk in the river beds because of the glass. And that was in the late 70s when there were some efforts to get some kind of legislation. Farm Bureau was behind that at the time. I grew up on a farm. I have a farm. I paid $200 to have a tractor tire replaced because it ran over a piece of glass. So, rambling around a little bit, Albert Einstein said that everything that is worth measuring can't be measured. And we have a fantastic quality of life here in Rutherford County and in Murfreesboro. On the board of the Friends of the Greenway, it's a beautiful place. But when you go down it and you see a pile of trash washed up in the river, it kind of spoils that. A lot of the programs we have in place now are addressed at getting it cleaned up, picking it up with a little incentive to do it. This bill, I think, addresses the head of the problem, preventing it from getting out there. So I encourage you to read it, and I think for this county, it would be good.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Anyone else? Anybody on the committee got anything else on this particular item before we move on to the highway department?
I'd like to say one more thing.
Go ahead,
I know
Mr. Daniel.
I've spoken about 3 times
That's
tonight,
okay.
but
You got to speak all you want to.
just want to commend Mimi for the thorough preparation and trying to squeeze things down. As a former editor, I have some problems doing that, and I really appreciate it when I see a good job of it. Thank you very much.
Okay, then. We'll move on to the highway department report. We got 2 items here from road board and the highway department. The first item on there is approve a speed limit on Gunpucket Road of 30 miles an hour. For any of you that don't know Gunpucket Road, it's about a crooked and narrow road you can get on out there off Braidwell Road. So you mind you got to pull over in the driveways to pass on a lot of them. So I think they've had 2 or 3 wrecks on there in the last 6 months. It's like every other one. A lot of these roads like this, where more people are moving in on them, used to wouldn't be. I remember when it wasn't 5 or 6 on that road, and I guess it's 35, 40 now.
Kind of famous for something, isn't it? Never mind.
Okay, need a motion to approve that then.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And then, second, item we have from the Highway Department is, to accept another drainage easement on West Park Estates. You get that approved. All in favor? Anyone got anything else they wanna bring up?
Committee know that Mr. Willie Brandon passed this.
Oh, he did.
Just at home, is it home? Really?
Well, I know this committee and most of the residents that know Mr. Willie in Rutherford County, the ones that didn't, he was custodian up here for years. Done an outstanding job. How old was he, Mac? Over 100?
103, I think.
103-year-old.
Been 104
And
this year. Wow.
we hate to hear the passion to him. And he'll be greatly missed by his family and the people that know him. So, if there's no other business, I move we adjourn.